You quoted an executive for the NFL Players Association who is very concerned about protecting the players, their privacy and their image with the new era in which we live with legalized betting. And here's a bit of the piece that you wrote. An executive for the NFLPA on Friday told a room of state legislators and gaming industry officials that players are concerned about what expanded legal sports betting means for them in their private and on-field lives. They believe the new landscape will add to the venom already directed at them by fantasy sports participants and by bettors. And you quoted, among others, offensive lineman Eric Winston, who was reelected as the NFLPA president for a third term, saying the dehumanization of athletes is a weekly occurrence on social media after games. Can you expand a little bit on this thought, and just how legitimate do you think those concerns are in a world where we all understand gambling was already taking place, even though it wasn't legal in 49 states?
Yeah, you nailed it on the head. I mean, the unions are concerned. They're not looking for a cut of the action like some of the sports leagues are. They're really trying to focus on the protection of their athletes, both on the field and in their private lives. They used the LeBron James going to the Los Angeles Lakers as an example. If you were able to somehow follow LeBron and see Magic Johnson pull into his house or something, and to be able to confirm that he was going to the Lakers, you would have had an advantage. So it's just going to put more pressure on the athletes, both on the field and their private life. And as Eric Winston said, you know, every week, if you watch on Twitter or social media, some guy has a bad game. You see fantasy players, you see sports bettors just really letting them have it, and that's unfortunate. Now, like you mentioned it, that we're already betting a lot of money. American Gaming Association estimates that we bet $150 billion on sports annually. We've been playing fantasy sports for decades. They just are concerned that the legalization may intensify that and may increase it. And so they want to take steps. You can't really blame the unions for being proactive on this, saying, okay, we want to take some kind of precautions to make sure we protect our athletes. So it's going to be something to watch. I hope sports bettors and fantasy players can take a rational approach to this. If you are getting to a point where you have to feel like you have to express and scream and yell at players, they may have a bad game, you're taking it too seriously. For 99.9% of us, fantasy sports and sports betting need to be a form of recreation. And if it gets past that, it's not worth it. You need to stop.
All right, it's well said. David Purdum, thank you. It's a very interesting piece. I recommend it. We will definitely, frequently, I'd like to say, have you on the program here as we sort of work our way towards the season and all the other things with gambling becoming so much more a part of things. And so let me take that to the table here because it's a really interesting concept. And look, you were a player and you understand that. And certainly in Europe, I mean, the wagering on the soccer is overwhelming and it is all completely legal over there. I fully support the players' associations wanting to protect their players. Yep. I'm just not sure exactly what that even means. What does that look like? What are they doing differently than they would already be doing?
I'm not sure they're going to get any worse comments on social media the way Eric Winston was talking about than they are now. I do think it's going to change to certain protocols. I think the injury report needs to be more transparent than it already is. But when I look at gambling on sports, and listen, I've paid attention to lines. My whole entire family always has. We talk about this whenever we talk about sports, is what are the lines, over-unders, all that stuff. I look at the NCAA, and I was paying attention to the SEC Media Days yesterday, and the commissioner, Greg Sankey, came out and said, this is changing the integrity of our game because our athletes are amateur athletes.
Right.
So now who's to say that now all of a sudden that gets a little clouded? And the injury reports in college football are borderline pathetic. So they need to protect that. So, Greeny, that's the only thing. But to your point, it's not like it's going to be worse. The comments they get now from fantasy football is going to be equally as bad. It's the integrity of the game that everyone's worried about.
Well, and the transparency, I mean, he referenced it was specifically LeBron James with the hand issue in the finals that nobody knew about until the minute they were eliminated from the finals. And that was a red flag as far as had that been a betting situation. As far as the dehumanization of athletes, unfortunately, I believe the toothpaste is already out of that tube.
Yes.
We have reached a level of dregs with data plans on their phones that have decided they need their opinions out there for everyone to hear. Whether you're an athlete or a teacher or somebody on television or what have you, you're hearing some of the worst stuff every day, all day. So unfortunately, I believe that that's either a you just get off a social media situation or learn to ignore it, because I don't think that's going anywhere. And I don't think that that would be a motivating factor to sort of change anything at this point.
And there's a lot here to talk about, but quickly on the integrity piece, that is already there. And I would think, if anything, bringing some of this out of the darkness and into the light would be an improvement.
Agreed.
Not the opposite, as far as trying to keep that from happening. The overwhelming majority of point shaving scandals in the history of sports have come in the collegiate ranks for exactly the reason that you just described, or with officials. So those are things that, at least if those bets are taking place, or the majority of them are taking place legally, it might be easier to spot than it would be. Look, this is a huge topic in American sports going forward, and we'll certainly continue to cover it here.